If you're feeling lost, tired, or broken, this story might be exactly what you need right now. They laughed at him. Not once, not twice, but every single day. They called him weak. They said he didn't belong. Some even whispered, if a real war ever comes, he'll be the first to run. But what no one expected, what no one saw coming, was that 6 months later, this same man would become the reason they survived. This is not a story about talent. This is not a story about fearlessness. This is a story about a man who was broken first and rebuilt himself in silence. His name was Ethan Walker. He never dreamed of joining the army. He never imagined wearing a uniform or holding a rifle. He was forced. Forced by financial pressure. Forced by responsibility. Forced by circumstances he couldn't escape. When the recruitment letter arrived, his hands trembled. Not from excitement, but from fear. Ethan was quiet, awkward, physically average. The kind of guy people underestimated instantly. On the first day of training, while others stood confident and proud, Ethan stood unsure, boots heavy, heart racing. From that moment on, he was noticed, not for strength, but for weakness. Training was brutal, endless running, relentless drills, live fire exercises. Ethan struggled with everything. He fell behind during runs, missed targets at the range, and collapsed during endurance training. And every single failure came with laughter. Come on, man. You sure you belong here? He won't last. Even his own unit started to avoid him. When teams were formed, no one chose Ethan. He ate alone. He trained alone. He carried the humiliation like extra weight on his back. At night, while the others joked and laughed, Ethan would just stare into the darkness, asking himself one painful question over and over. Am I really this weak? One evening, after another failed drill, a senior soldier walked up to him, looked him dead in the eye, and said, You're a liability. If a war breaks out, people will die because of you. And in that moment, something inside Ethan shattered. He sat alone behind the barracks, dust on his uniform, his eyes burning with tears he refused to wipe away. He thought of quitting, of walking away, of admitting defeat. But then he remembered his mother. He remembered her tired voice on the phone, her quiet strength. She always told him, even if the world thinks you're weak, never believe it yourself. That night, Ethan made a silent promise. If he was going to fail, he would fail after giving absolutely everything he had. From the next morning, Ethan changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, silently. While others were still asleep, he was training. He ran till his lungs burned. He practiced shooting until his hands blistered. He lifted weights no one saw him lift. When they mocked him, he stayed quiet. When they laughed at him, he just lowered his head. But inside him, something was forming. A strength built from pain. A discipline built from shame. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. 6 months passed. And no one even noticed, because real growth doesn't announce itself. Then one morning, sirens screamed through the air. Enemy forces had crossed the border. This wasn't training. This wasn't a drill. This was war. Ethan's unit was deployed immediately. Fear filled the air. The same men who once laughed and joked now looked pale and uncertain. And then, an ambush. Explosions. Gunfire. Chaos was everywhere. Communication collapsed. Several soldiers were trapped, including the very ones who used to mock Ethan the most. Smoke covered the battlefield. Bullets tore through the air. There were no orders, no backup, only one choice. Run or act. And Ethan didn't hesitate. He moved. He crawled under gunfire, pulled wounded soldiers to safety, and returned fire with deadly precision. The same man they once called weak now became their shield. At one point, a soldier screamed, "Ethan, don't come back." But he did, again and again, until finally the firing stopped. until a deafening silence fell over the field. When the smoke cleared, they were alive, because of him. The soldiers sat in shock, looking at Ethan, then at each other. One of them finally broke the silence. "We were wrong," he said, his voice cracking. "You saved us." Ethan said nothing. There was no pride in his eyes, no anger, just calm, steady breathing. He just stood there, tall. Weeks later, Ethan stood before his entire unit. But this time, there was no laughter. There was no mockery. There was only respect. Not because he spoke loudly, not because he demanded it, but because when fear arrived, he stood, listened carefully. The world will judge you early. It will laugh at you loudly. It will doubt you openly. Let them. Because strength isn't loud. Transformation isn't instant. And real warriors are built in silence. Before you leave, comment this below. I will rise. And if stories of strength, sacrifice, and transformation inspire you, subscribe to this channel. Because the next story might be exactly what you need.